Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my next video. First of all, subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to receive all the notifications. Today we will be taking an interesting topic, that is human nervous system. This human nervous system of our body is divided into two parts: the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is again divided into two parts: its brain and its spinal cord. Today we will be taking brain. The brain is the widest, and we'll take first introduction to the brain. The brain is the widest and the uppermost part of central nervous system. The brain is the widest, it's ये बहुत wide है, and it's the uppermost part of the central nervous system. It has the highest coordinating center in the body. Like we're learning coordination in animals today, so it has the highest coordinating center in the human body. Brain is situated in the cranial cavity. The cranial cavity of the skull, it's present in the head region. So brain is situated in the location of brain is in the cranial cavity of the skull, which is present in the head region of our body. The bones of cranium or brain box. Cranium was also known as brain box. The bones of cranium or brain box protect this delicate organ from mechanical injuries. You know, the bones of cranium is also known as brain box, protects this brain. Cerebrospinal fluid also protect this brain, and from the meninges. That is, there are three membranes called meninges which protect brain from mechanical shocks. The study of brain and all is called encephalology. The brain is soft and it's whitish organ. Its weight is about 1 point. It varies. Its weight varies from individual to individual, but approximately the weight is 1.2 to 1.4 kg, and it covers 98% of the central nervous system. You know, it has 100 billion nerve cells. We will be now, after we complete brain, we'll be going through nerve cells. The nerve cells are the functional unit of the nervous system. Right here we are learning the human nervous system, so the nerve cells are the functional units of human nervous system. Brain, we talked about before, that brain is surrounded by three membranes called meninges which protect the brain from the mechanical shocks, and the space between the three meninges is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid which also protects brain from mechanical shocks. It was a little bit introduction to brain. Now we will be going through brain and its parts. You know, the brain is divided into three parts. It's forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. I will repeat, brain is divided into three parts: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Again, forebrain is divided into three parts: olfactory lobes, cerebrum, and diencephalon. Forebrain is divided into three parts: olfactory lobes, cerebrum, diencephalon. Cerebrum again divided into four parts: frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe. Midbrain is midbrain. You know, midbrain, will be going through midbrain, that it is the smallest region of the brain. It consists of the fibril tracts that we'll be going through once we come to midbrain. Now the hindbrain is again divided into three parts, that is pons paroli, medulla oblongata, cerebellum. Now let's move to the first part of the brain, that is forebrain, and let us discuss its three parts. What are they? Forebrain, we talked about that it consists of three parts: olfactory lobes, cerebrum, diencephalon. Olfactory lobes are a pair of widely separated club-shaped small structures. You know, these olfactory lobes, these are club-shaped small structures, and these are fully covered by cerebral hemispheres, means these are fully covered by the cerebrum and thus are only visible on the ventral wave of the brain. The olfactory lobe is again divided into two parts, that is anterior olfactory bulb and posterior narrow olfactory stalk. What is the function of olfactory lobes? That these lobes receive impulses from olfactoreceptors. A very important term. Olfactoreceptors. These lobes receive impulses. Olfactory lobes receive impulses from olfactoreceptors. Now, what are olfactoreceptors? Actually, we talked about in class 9, that is tissues. We talked about epithelium. There are types of epithelium, like cuboidal epithelium, squamous epithelium. Another type of epithelium is olfactory epithelium, which is present in the nose. Now let us move to we discussed olfactory lobes. I will repeat what are olfactory lobes. These are small club-shaped structures and are covered by a cerebrum or cerebral hemispheres. The olfactory lobes, they are consists of anterior olfactory bulb and a posterior narrow anterior or olfactory stalk. These lobes receive the impulses from olfactoreceptors. Now cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, which is very, very important part. Cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It is almost the complex and specialized part of the brain. The two cerebral hemispheres lie side by side, यानी कि एक हेमिस्फीयर इस साइड से दूसरा हेमिस्फीयर इस साइड से, they lie side by side. And they are separated from each other by deep longitudinal called cerebral fissure. Cerebral fissure separates these cerebral hemispheres which are lie side by side. The surface of these cerebral hemispheres is greatly folded. Now it's greatly folded. Why? Because to accommodate large number of nerve cells, because there are 100 billion nerve cells in brain. We discussed 100 billion nerve cells in the brain. So the surface is folded because to accommodate the large number of nerve cells. The folds are called gyri and the depressions between them is called sulci. There are specific regions in cerebrum for each kind of stimuli and its response, like frontal lobe, responsible for speech, facial activities, higher mental activities, temporal lobe, region for hearing, occipital lobe, region for sight, parental lobe, region for touch, region for taste, smell, temperature. Third part is diencephalon. It lies on the inferior side of the cerebrum, and there is this is also visible in the ventral view of the brain. Why it's visible in the ventral view of the brain? Because it lies in the inferior side of the cerebrum, and olfactory lobes are also visible in the ventral view of the brain. Why? Because the cerebrum is fully covered. Its roof is called epithalamus, sides are called thalami, its floor is called hypothalamus. It's like a house. See, it's like a house. It's sides, roofs, floor, floor, sides, houses. It's called hypothalamus. It's called hypothalamus. It's called what you can say. It's called hypothalamus. It's called thalami. It's called epithalamus. Its floor is called hypothalamus. Roof is called what can say epithalamus, and the sides are called thalami. Very interesting, like house. It plays a role like house. Structure is like house, and it has a narrow cavity called third ventricle. So we are over with the forebrain. Now midbrain. It is the smallest region of the brain. It consists of two fiber tracts called crura crabbe and two swellings called superior and inferior colliculi on each side. It controls, what is the function of midbrain? That it controls reflex movements of the head, neck, and trunk in response to visual and auditory stimuli. We talked olfactory, in which we talk about olfactory lobes, that there are specific regions in cerebrum for each kind of stimulus and its response, like frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, and parental lobe. That is, temporal lobe is responsible for the hearing, occipital lobe is responsible for the sight. So same as hair, visual and auditory stimuli. The eye muscles, it controls the reflex movements of the eye muscles, means changes in pupil size as well as the change in the shape of the eye lens. Eye lens has it's a convex lens. Now hindbrain, it again consists of three parts: cerebellum, pons varolii, and medulla oblongata. We'll discuss first cerebellum. It's the second largest part of the brain. Cerebrum and cerebellum, two parts, differences between them. It's the second largest, and that is the largest part of the brain. It consists nearly 12.5% of it. It consists nearly 12.5% of the brain. Cerebellum maintains the posture, equilibrium, and muscle tone. Pons virale controls your aspects of respiration, which we learned in the life process that respiration is the oxidation reaction. It's an oxidation reaction in which carbohydrate is oxidized to produce energy in our body. Then we talked about there are types of respiration. We have not to go through that, but we have to only understand that pons virale controls the aspects of respiration. Medulla oblongata is the posterior part of the brain and lies below the cerebellum. It lies below the cerebellum like this. The cerebellum is here and then it lies below the cerebellum. It contains of a fluid-filled cavity called fourth ventricle. Don't be confused, because we talked about the diencephalon has a narrow cavity called third ventricle, and the this medulla oblongata has also a cavity which is called fourth ventricle. Medulla oblongata, what is the function of medulla oblongata? It controls the rate of heartbeat, breathing movements, coughing, sneezing, swallowing, and vomiting. So this was all about the brain. Now let us first of all discuss the parts of brain now. We'll be discussing the parts of brain which we talked about. Wait. Diagram to show various actions. It's a cerebrum, okay? You can see cerebrum. Its temporal lobe is here. Speech. Why speech? Because speech was responsible for speech. Frontal lobe. Responsible for speech. Parental lobe. You will be discussing now. What you will learn, you will be going through it and you will learn it. See, this is the diagram of brain. Olfactory lobes are present there. Cerebellum present here. Sulcus, gyrri, Grice means gyrri, sulcus, depressions between folds. It's all about olfactory lobes. Cerebrum, largest part of the brain. Hypothalamus. What is the hypothalamus? It's a floor of what? Diencephalon. So here is the diencephalon. It's midbrain. Here, two fiber contracts, swellings, anterior and exterior and inferior. Pons virale, cerebellum, medulla oblongata. We talked about it. It lies below the cerebellum. Here you can see it. So this is all about the brain. Thank you for your cooperation.